Welcome to another Python tutorial. In today's video, we are going to cover probably one of the most commonly used data types within Python, list. So lists fall under the sequence data types in Python. So in other words, it's a sequence or it's a collection of, in this particular case, arbitrary objects. I know I'm kind of being a little bit formal here, but basically what it means is that it can contain different types of objects within it. And more importantly, we have to understand that lists are a little bit more flexible. So you can add items to lists, you can delete items from a list. So this is what we're kind of defining as the flexibility component to it. And then also we need to keep in mind that lists are ordered. And so what that means is that you can have two lists with the same exact values. However, if they are in different orders, they are considered two different lists. So what we're going to do in this video is I already got some examples all laid out for us. And these are just doing very common things that we normally do with a list. And so there's things like indexing, adding, deleting, sorting, all sorts of different stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump into it and we're going to just start going through these examples one by one. Okay, so the first one. This is to demonstrate the fact that lists are ordered, and so that technically you can have two lists that have the exact same items in them, but simply being in a different order will actually mean that these are two technically different lists. And so the first thing you'll notice is that our lists always start and end with square brackets, and then that each object within our list is separated by a comma. And so in this particular case, I have 4 different strings in this list, and they're all separated by commas. And so this is what we'll call an element of our list, so an individual item. And then the group of these items is the collection within the list. And then here, all I'm asking is just some conditions or just really questions about my list. So is A equal to B? A is B, so basically the same thing as AB. And then also I'm just demonstrating again that we can actually put two individual lists and actually ask the question, are these two equal to each other? And then let's see what these results come out to. Okay, so everything is false. Just like we were expecting, the reason why is that every one of these lists are ordered differently. So because they have different order, they are considered two distinct different lists. The next topic that we're going to talk about is that lists can contain arbitrary objects. So what this is just telling us is that you could have different types of data types within a list. And so here I have a float, then I go to a string, then an integer, another string, a boolean, and then another float. And I can contain all of these items within a particular list. So this is again just demonstrating that we can have arbitrary objects in our list or different data types. To declare a list, it's very straightforward. You just simply name your list. You pass through the equal sign, and then you pass through 2 square brackets. So this is creating a new list that is empty, so there is nothing in it. If there are some values that we want to store when we create our list, we simply pass through those items that we want to store in our list separated by a comma, and the process is exactly the same. So we name our list, and then we set the equal sign. So here we're creating a list with 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then again, just to demonstrate, we can have different data types in a list when we declare it. So there's nothing stopping you if you want to have different elements made up of different data types in your list when you create it. You can also have nested lists, so list within a list. And so here I've created another list, again with mixed data types, but then you can tell with my third position, I have a nested list, so a list within a list. And then again, those lists can have different data types as well. The first one has integers, and then the second one is a list that contains strings. So they're both inside the outer list, but each inner list contains different data types. So say we want to get an element out of our list, how do we do that? Well, here I've created a list, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want to access my first element, I simply call my list, pass through some brackets, and then I pass through the position that I want to return. Lists are 0 based, so that means they start at 0, not 1. This is probably one of the most difficult things to sometimes get used to when you're working with lists or just programming in general. We live in a zero-based world in programming, and so in this particular example, if I want to get my first element, I actually have to pass through 0. So it's usually just 1 less whatever the position is. If I want to get my second element, I pass through a 1. If I want to get my third element, I'm going to pass through a 2. I can only pass through integers when I'm indexing my list. I cannot pass through a float. And when I pass through an integer, I can only pass through positions that actually exist in my list. So in this example, I'm asking for my 5th position. However, you can see clearly here that I only have, 4 positions. I guess technically this would be, no, that's still the 5th position. Sorry, I'm getting myself confused. So this one, I'm trying to access a position that does not exist in my list. So both of these lines right here will actually return errors. So just keep that in mind. And then all I'm doing, just so that way you guys can see it, is I'm printing it out. I'll actually clear out everything I thought I did before I did it, but apparently I did not. Okay. And so here I'm just going to access the first, second, and third element. So I should get back 1, 2, and 3. And then also if I want to access a particular element in a nested list, it's very straightforward. The logic holds the same. Call my list. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass through the position that I want to access in the outer list. And then I'm going to pass through the position that I want to access in the inner list. And so in this one, I should get back this one and then this element within that particular nested list. And then on the second example, I should get back 5. And then on the third example, I should get back 8. Oh, actually, on the second example, I should get back 6. So here I'm just going to print it out just so that way you guys can see it. And then I'm just going to run this. So you get 1, 2, 3, 1, 6, 8. So just like we were expecting. And then, oh, maybe that's why I was doing that. And then from here, we also can have individual characters in our list. So this again is just demonstrating that to you. And then here we're going to be slicing our list. So we're going to be getting basically multiple items back. And so on this one, we're getting position 0 to 1. We're getting this one 2 to the last one. And then we're getting this one 2 to the first one. So this one's going to, the last one, going to come back with Y and O. And so if I run this one, I get back Y for the first one, so 0 to 1 right here, and then D to A, so 2 on, and then -2. Basically, it's these two. So it's like we're starting here and then anything back. So that's kind of a little bit confusing part. When you first look at this, you would think, oh, this is going to give me back 0 and 1. I mean, sorry, Y and O, right? Because it's 0 and 1. Not necessarily. This one's just giving back Y. So it's saying start here and then stop before this position. Okay, so we have a list. What happens if we want to add an item to it or we want to change a particular element about our list? Well, it's really straightforward. We're going to go back kind of in reverse order. So here we were kind of saying, hey, access a particular element or elements in our list. Here I'm saying take that specific element and set a value that I specify. So here I'm saying, hey, take position 0 and set the value equal to 1. So it will go from 3 to 1. Here I'm going to change multiple elements. So this will change elements 2 to 3 to 7 and 8. This one I'm going to add a new item to my list, but I'm going to add it to the end of my list. So this will add 9. So I call the append method on my list. And then I can also add multiple items at once, but I have to use the extend method. And so here I'm going to pass through multiple items that I want to add to my list. I just call the extend method on my list. I can use the plus operator, so I can take my original list and then add multiple items to it using the plus operator. And then here I am using the multiply, or I guess, yeah, the multiplicative operator. And so with this one, I'm just going to be repeating this particular thing within this particular list. And so it's going to all come mushed together, but again, just demonstrating that you can do that. And then here I'm going to insert 6 in the position 1. So I use the insert method, specify the position I want to add this particular item in, and then what item do I want to pass through into that position. And then I can also do multiple items at the same time. So here I'm going to insert at the position 3, 5, and 6. So when I run this, as you can tell, it went from 3 to 1, and then I added 7 and 8 to the third position, then I added 9, then I added 10, 11, and 12, 10, 10, 10. This is just saying, hey, you can multiply whatever you want within that list. And then you inserted 6 in position 1, and then here I've added 5 and 6 to position 3. So that's how we modify our list, so we can extend it, or we can add a particular item or change the value. Well, if we can add and change, I'm sure we can delete, right? Of course. So here again we have a list, and I'm going to delete particular items in my list. So here I'm saying delete from range 1 to 4. And then here I'm deleting just one particular item from my list. So anything in position 1. I can delete my entire list if I so choose. I just call the delete keyword. Here I am removing a particular character from my list. So I'm saying remove this character, so E. I can remove the item at position 1, so I'm going to be using the pop method. So whatever is at position 1, I will remove that item. Usually you can store it in a variable if you so choose. If I don't pass through a particular index, I will just simply get back the last position. So if I call the pop method and I don't specify an index, then I will just simply get the last item in our list. And then what I can do is I can clear my list, so I can just remove all the items from it. So if I run this, okay, so now it took it down from 1 to 5. Well, sorry, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1 and 5. And then I removed the item in the first position. I removed E. And then I removed the item at position 1, which at that point was A. Then I removed U. And then I simply cleared everything in my list. These are some methods and functions that belong to our list. So there's a particular method we can leverage called index. So we pass through the value, and what this will return is the index of that particular item that we're looking for in our list. We can copy our list. So if we call the copy method, we can store a copy of our list in a new variable while still maintaining our old list, so our old fruit list. And then here, I'm just defining the same list over again. And then here I'm asking a question. Does this particular value exist in this list? If so, print that it does exist. Here I'm looping through a list. So I'm saying for each element in my group, print each element. The element being a fruit and the group being the fruit list. Here I'm counting the number of items in our list. Did I print it out? I don't think I did. I'm going to print it out so you can see it. Number of items. Here I'm going to sort my list. So if I call the sort method, it will sort it. Here it will reverse the order of our list. So I call the reverse method. Here I'm getting the largest number from my list using the max function. Here I'm getting the smallest number by using the min function. This, if I call the enumerate function, it will create an enumeration object that I can iterate through. And then this is showing me that we can iterate through that object it creates. So it passes back an index and a value for each item in our list. And then if I want, I can call the sum function to sum all the items in my list. So let's run this. Okay, so orange has a position of 1. Perfect. Here I'm just printing my new list that I copied. All right. And then here, apple does exist. shock. And then here I am just looping through the list. So apple, oranges, pears. And then the next one, I am getting the number of items from my list. So there's 3 items. That's what this is returning. This is sorting my list from smallest to largest. And then this is reversing the order of my list. So it's just taking this one and it's switching it around. 10 is the largest item in my list. 2 is the smallest item in my list. Here is an enumeration object. Doesn't really mean anything. And then here is me printing out the index and the value for each item in my list. And then this is the total of my list. It is 20. All right. So that does it for list. Try to make it a quick video, just a quick overview, because trust me, we will be doing a lot with lists, so you'll get used to it very quickly, I promise. If you have any questions about lists, please put them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you. Also, if you could make sure to like the video, always helps out a lot. Definitely appreciate the support. And if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you get regular updates as we release new videos. We're going to continue on our series where we're working with APIs, we're starting to explore more of Python, a lot of good information there, so you want to stay in the loop. So thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.